for joining us today to our Networks Live on Demand series of Blue Star Families webinar. I'm Kelly Babbs. I am the Senior Technology Manager here at Blue Star Families. I am an Army veteran myself and a military spouse of just about 21 years. And I'm currently stationed here at Fort Bliss, Texas. I am so excited to bring to you Diana Rao of Veterati and Jean South from Higher Serve today. Diana is the CEO of Veterati, which offers service members and military spouses free mentorship calls with successful professionals to help them take their resume, personal brand, professional career goals to the next level. Jean is the CEO of Higher Serve, who works with companies to place military veterans, spouses, and former law enforcement officers into career positions. Today, they're both going to share with you how impactful and important mentorship relationships can be. We also have Liz Jones, our careers coordinator at Blue Star Families, and you can reach out to her if you have any questions about Networks Live by emailing her at careers@bluestarfam.org. Couple housekeeping items before we get started. If you downloaded Zoom for this webinar, you will not have to download it again for any future webinar that you attend with us, so it just makes it a little easier. And in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you should see a bar that says Audio Settings, Q&A, Chat, and Raise Your Hand. For this webinar, we're going to compile all the questions that you guys have and answer them at the end. So if you want to just type it in the Q&A box, and then either Liz or I will read them at the end. And then tomorrow you'll also receive a short survey via email if you could take it and let us know what you thought and what we can do to make it better. We would super appreciate that. Without further ado, Diana, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, anything I have to do to share my screen, or good to go to just?
So right at the bottom, you should have a little green box that says share screen.
Got it.
Okay, cool.
Let's take a look. Sharing screen. Okay.
And it'll ask you, I think it'll ask you to select your whole screen.
Yes, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Oh, Liz, can you help us out? I think she's working on it right now.
Okay, cool.
There we go.
Try it again real quick.
Okay, we are good. Yeah, this will work now.
Thanks.
Okay. So, are you guys able to see my screen now?
We sure can.
Okay, great. So I'll dive straight into it. I'm really excited to be here today and share a little bit about our mentoring platform and the power of mentoring with everyone. So thanks to Blue Star Families for having us. Veterati has been a proud partner of Blue Star Families for quite a while now. I think it's been over a year and a half. So we're excited to share today. All right, so before the internet, we had tribes, right? This concept of tribes. And tribes were really how we survived. It was these strong social bonds, knowledge sharing, and taking care of each other. And the crazy thing about like the digital age and the internet is it's made us more connected than ever, but actually our connections with each other have weakened. So we've gone from my neighbor having my kids over for lunch when I'm out on errands to kind of browsing what your neighbors are making for dinner on Facebook feeds. And we've also gone from a village that comes together to help the tribe member down on luck find a job through collective networks and advice to like one person sitting at a computer alone sending out hundreds of job applications, hoping that one human being might respond on the other side. So our tribal bonds are actually weaker than ever. Veterati is activating one of history's most powerful tribes, the US military, and the 94% of Americans who support our military to solve what we see as one of the greatest crises of opportunities for our transitioning soldiers and also our military spouses today, which is finding a job. And when we approach this crisis, we really didn't think about it very traditionally. We thought about it in terms of, 80% of jobs don't even come through job boards. They come through the people who believe in you. So the big question that we asked as a team was, how do we connect our veterans and military spouses to the people who believe in them and to the tribe that will mentor and sponsor and champion them to success after they come home from the battlefield? So this is Veterati. We're a digital mentoring platform that empowers veterans and military spouses to book direct phone calls with members of the military passionate tribe. So our mentors are veterans, they're military spouses, they're military passionate civilians, and also their employers as well, and recruiters. And so through these conversations, the mentors are able to level up transitioning talent into becoming very focused, very confident, and interview-ready candidates, ready to really land the jobs of your dreams. So I want to share a couple stories about how a simple phone call can really change your life. And Jean will also speak to this later as well. She has a lot of incredible stories around this. To date, thousands of phone calls have taken place on our platform already. We've collected somewhere around 2,000 plus stories. I'm not going to share 2,000 stories with you. So we'll share probably 4 of a couple highlight stories that'll help to explain how the platform really works and how the mentoring community works. Okay, so the first example is William Liu's pretty interesting. He has 27 mentors on Veterati, right? And he leveraged the platform to crowdsource mentoring for every part of the job search, from what to do about LinkedIn advice, to resume reviews, to networking opportunities, to interview prep, to elevator pitches. He did a lot of elevator pitches with his mentors, to even new transition classes, reading materials, introductions. Like, what was interesting is when he interviewed for his job at Booz Allen, he ended up interviewing with a mentor of his who he had spoken with months ago and had actually referred him into the position. So really, really interesting how you can like crowdsource mentoring. It's not just, we're not in an age where you just choose one person and have to stay with them forever. It's all about how can you source all the different types of superpowers to make your aggregate 360-degree experience work, right? Another example, so this is Susie. So Susie's a military spouse, and she actually used our platform to connect with other military spouses and mentors across all different industries. So she was actually facing a move from New York to San Antonio. And what's interesting about our platform is you're not locationally restricted, which means Susie was able to get on our platform, and even though she was moving from New York to San Antonio, she could search for mentors in San Antonio and book conversations with them through the phone prior to her move, and be able to explore opportunities and discover different companies even without actually being there local, right? So yeah, so she really shared her experience. You know, it was all about being heard. It was really about learning new tips and tactics, and that made a big difference for her as well. The other example I wanted to give is Veterati. When we first started, we actually were very focused on how we could support enlisted soldiers and spouses. And it wasn't about like senior, a lot of organizations focus on junior military officers and senior level of talent. But for Veterati, what's actually been kind of unique is we get a huge swath of all different types of mentees. So we'll have military spouses who are in the process of getting their degree, or we'll have spouses who are like super senior level executives already and still looking for different types of advice. In this case, William, he was, you know, he was fairly senior and he was already like very established, and thought he already had a great plan. And then he went on the platform, had some conversations, and realized it's all about discovering the things you don't even know you don't know yet. In addition, these like 1-hour conversations are very structured. So you're guaranteed to have 60 minutes with every mentor you talk to. And that was actually a simplification. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, when am I going to schedule this call? Who do I have to book? It's all automated. So it's really easy to connect with someone and have that meaningful, very focused interaction. And the last I'll share is Kristin's story. So Kristin really captures the power of these individual conversations, right? And what I loved about what she shared with us was this idea of like, I can do this, I can achieve a dream job, and I'm worth it, which is a product of being able to connect with the people who are in your tribe and who believe in you and have been in your pathway before, so they can really share their, you know, their missteps and their successes and their failures, and you know that you're not alone in this. So definitely, you know, a couple of different stories to show the power of the platform. And as you've probably noticed, like, this is much more than mentoring, right? So these are 1-hour phone calls that are contributing directly to your hireability and interview readiness. There are also conversations that have led to real jobs. There are conversations that lead to friendships. We've had lots of cases where mentees and mentors will like switch vacation homes. They'll text us when they're out like mussel hunting in the ocean. I don't know, all sorts of different things that happen. And there are also conversations that build confidence and self-worth and hope. And for us, like this platform, the Veterati platform, is able to power this living and breathing tribe that really takes care of its own. So the next section, I'm going to tell you about how our platform works so that you can become a mentee or a mentor right now. If you go to Veterati.com, you can actually set up an account while I'm walking through this and kind of listen, but I'll do a couple highlights of how our platform works. So the first thing to know is that we've made it super easy to become a mentor or a mentee, like less than 2 minutes easy. So there are no applications, there's no like scheduling, there's no driving around anywhere. all you have to do is go to veterati.com and you set up a profile, and then you're available for any veteran or spouse to book you for a phone call, or you're able to book phone calls with everyone in our platform. It's an open platform, so it's really all about you and what makes the most sense for you. We're not restrictive. Like, you don't get 5 people you're allowed to talk to. You can talk to all like 2,000 mentors. The second part of our platform is we use algorithms to make it really easy to get the right mentees to the right mentors. So when we first started Veterati, we actually, like, one of our very first advisors was the chief scientist and co-founder at eHarmony. So just like you can use dating platforms, like dating platforms all use algorithms to match, right? It's the same with the Veterati platform. We use algorithms to match you to your best fit mentors. And as the system processes more data, it's able to create better and better recommendations. One thing to take note of is those recommendations are not hard recommendations. So you don't have to talk to everyone who's like a 95% match to you. You can also talk to people that are like a 25% match or a 30% match, because in the end, you are smarter than the algorithms, at least in the beginning, until we figure out what your preferences are. But definitely you can use those as a guideline to getting the right advice at the right time. The third thing about Veterati is we are focused on letting our mentees choose mentors on demand. So once our mentors upload availabilities, you can book them. Like, you basically are able to select times in their calendar. You can choose a day, you can choose a time, and then send a request. So the moment you send a request, your mentor will actually get a text message. And the mentor just confirms that link in the text message, and the whole call is queued up. So 24 hours before your call, you'll get a text message with context, best practices. At the time of the call, Veterati will call your phone, and once you press 1 to confirm, it'll call your mentor, connect you guys. And then after your calls are complete, there's a small survey that you complete, and it's really, it's actually a really awesome survey because you get direct recommendations about your mentors and mentees, and you get automatic feedback on everything. So like, the moment you finish a call, your mentor is going to write you like a recommendation, evaluate what impact they created, and you evaluate your mentor, and the whole system's able to capture all of that data and track your progress throughout the experience. So this is an example of what our review system looks like. And the vast majority of our mentees and mentors complete these reviews because it's just like, it's an amazing way to get feedback. And also there are a couple cool steps after each review process where you're able to find new mentors that are a better match for you. And the last bit, so sorry about that text on the bottom, but the last bit is we also track when mentees land jobs. And so when you get the job after you've had 4 or 5, 6 conversations, you just click that yes button, and it sends all of your mentors you ever talked to a congratulations email, and also adds a badge to the profile that looks like this. So about 25% of our mentors have the jobs badge. About 15% of our mentees have landed their dream jobs through Veterati in our community. And it's amazing to track these stories, actually. And you can see the stories on veterati.com/success-stories. Yep. And so, you know, all of this is how the whole platform works, but basically, like, the whole entire ecosystem of Veterati, we just leverage technology to bring people together. Our core philosophy is that in this, like, in the world of Instagrams and Snapchats and Facebooks and LinkedIn's and everything else, like, sometimes it's hard to create deep connections now, and it's too easy to have like every single platform be a place where people just advertise, like, just you have to be like very curated about what you put out there about yourself. But Veterati isn't that. It's a safe space, right? To have authentic conversations, to have really incredible, meaningful relationships that are built with people who genuinely care about your success. And so I will, at this point, actually turn it over to Jean to share her story. Jean's an incredible friend of mine. She was a mentee on Veterati when I first met her. She's now a super mentor. She's an entrepreneur. She's a military spouse. She's built her own recruiting practice. And she is just, I think you guys will really enjoy hearing her story and perspective on the power of mentoring and her success to date.
Wow. So that's an introduction. Thanks, Diana.
Yeah.
A little background on me. I spent 9 years as an FBI special agent. And when I decided it was time to leave the FBI, I found that I didn't know how to tell the civilian world kind of what I did and who I was. And so I had a bunch of people saying, wow, you're in the FBI, you speak Russian, you have an MBA, like, what company won't snatch you up? And interestingly, no company was snatching me up. And it was because I didn't really know how to share with companies who I was and what I brought to the table. And I also didn't know how to explain kind of my purpose and the reason I exist on this earth and how I execute against that in life. And so I didn't know where I should be looking. I didn't know the job titles I should be looking for. I didn't know how to reach out to people properly. My networking attempts were poor at best. And it was a lot of like, here's a resume. What do I do now? And I had more questions than I had answers. And so my first job out of the bureau, I got really lucky. It was a friend of a friend, and I asked a bunch of questions, and I just happened to ask kind of the right questions of the right people. And I had a good friend who was also mentoring me in how to find a job. And so he was helping me understand a little better how to have the right conversation. So I ended up at McChrystal Group, which was amazing. I worked for General McChrystal for 2 years. And then I went through the same thing again. I had to get off the road. I'd been on the road for 2 years. I was exhausted, and my family kind of didn't know who I was. And so again, I had to find a job, and I wasn't looking for another job in consulting because that's exactly where I'd burned out before. So I was back in the same position where I didn't have any idea how to find a job. And I had someone say to me, well, you used to be an FBI agent. You know how to do interviews. Go do a bunch of informational interviews. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. I have to talk to a bunch of people and ask a bunch of questions to learn about the job market. But where do I find those people, and how do I get people to talk to me? And so I was on someone's website. I saw Veterati, like, all right, click, see what I find. And it was like I found this like magical like golden pot at the end of the rainbow. Like it just was exactly what I needed, because what I had in Veterati were a bunch of mentors who were willing to have conversations with me and answer my questions. And help me find my path. And so, that's how Diana and I first became acquainted, because I was considering starting my own business, and she's a CEO and she was available for a mentorship conversation. So I was like, well, if another CEO is available for a conversation, I can ask her about starting my own business. So we booked a call, which was crazy helpful. And I just started talking to mentors along the way. One mentor that I spoke to that was one of the most powerful conversations I had was another military spouse. And her profile said, ask me about, changing jobs, but like, I forget exactly what it was. It was something about ask me about changing jobs frequently or maintaining your identity as you change jobs frequently. And I was really struggling with that because I felt like I was a little broken. I was changing jobs because I wanted to. It wasn't, the military relocating me. It was, Jean's decided she wants something new and different. And what's broken about me that I can't find the right place? How do I tell people this? How do I have this conversation? And so I got on the phone with Jen, and what she said to me was super powerful. She said, Jean, it's not that you're different every, few years, or you've changed a lot. She said, you have been the same person all along. So you were a person with a special agent title. You were a person with consultant title. But who you are has been consistent. So figure out who that is. And when you figure out who that is, then you'll figure out how to kind of label yourself so that others can attach and understand what you bring to the table. That gave me the freedom to not be tied up in titles and to not be stuck in that space where I thought that I had to be something, right, for people. I started explaining to people my purpose, which is helping people when hardship stops causing growth and starts causing suffering. I do that by making powerful connections. And so I was able to show, I did that in the FBI when I built task forces for officers, dealing with gangs, for officers dealing with organized crime. I did that working for General McChrystal for businesses, helping build cross-functional teams. And all of a sudden it makes sense of who I am. And then I was able to get on the phone with other mentors and say, okay, I'm thinking about starting a business. Is this a good idea, bad idea? What do I need to do? How do I need to do this? And so in that, we started a coaching program at Higher Served once I started the business. And our coaching program starts with that concept of purpose, right? Who are you at the core? And then the very first thing we do is send everybody out to Veterati. We're like, okay, cool. You know how to say what your purpose is. Now get on the phone with people on Veterati and ask them what that job is in the private sector. So one of our biggest challenges is we don't know what jobs are called. And so I did exactly that. I went out and said, hey, I know that this is what I'm good at. I'm super good at connecting people. I like to work with people who are kind of in a place where they're really struggling. And someone was like, well, one place where you can connect people who are struggling is in the job search, being a headhunter. And I was like, oh, that makes sense, right? So that's kind of the birth of Higher Served and how Veterati was part of it then, and now how we continue to push people to Veterati all the time, because it gives you a chance to talk to all these different people. So we tell people, you know, schedule with an HR manager, schedule with somebody at a company you're interested in, schedule with somebody who's done some of the things you've done, and just get on the phone and start asking a bunch of questions. The big piece of advice I give everyone is get on the phone, ask a question, and shut up. So like, just ask and just like listen and write. And then the magical things I always say, and this is from years of interviewing people, at the end of your call, you want to ask, is there anything I have, you know, that I have not asked you that I should have? Because people might have like some magical pearl they're dying to share with you. And also, who else should I be talking to? So frequently a mentor will be like, oh, you know who else you should talk to? You should talk to so-and-so. And there's an ability within the Veterati platform for mentors to do that, to naturally say who someone should talk to. But it's a great opportunity for you to also do that. So then along the way, I became a mentor because I asked Diana, I said, finally, like I've gotten so much out of Veterati and out of these calls. How do I give back? And she's like, well, become a mentor. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm qualified. So lesson from that is you are qualified if you have any life experience that you can share with another spouse who's in transition, with a veteran who's in transition, you're officially qualified because you have some knowledge of, you know, what that is like. And so I now do mentorship calls as a mentor.
You do a ton of mentorship calls too as a mentor. I just sent out to the group your specific link, mentor link.
Okay.
So they can get in touch with you, definitely. Well, you know, Jean, it's so incredible. Well, can you talk about some of your highlights of being a mentor on the other side and the conversations you've had with some of your favorite mentees and how those have gone? Because it is like, it's really great. We have a lot of users on our platform that are both mentees and mentors. And we get this question all the time, can I be a mentee and a mentor? And we're like, yeah, I mean, we're all forever constantly growing. And I have my own mentors. I have like 50 mentors, right? But it's the same thing. Like I've got my mentees and mentors. You have your mentees and mentors, and I'd love to hear some of like your experiences with your mentees.
Yeah, so I have the joy of, because I'm in this career space and because we actually have a coaching program, stepping into Veterati is actually a chance for me to kind of let the coachee and the Veterati mentee guide what they need in that moment versus a more prescriptive, like, you know, this is kind of how we put, you know, what we need to start with and how we need to do this call. So I always start just by asking, you know, what is it that you need? What are you looking for today? What does success look like? You know, if you walk away with what, does that mean this was worth your time? And it's really interesting because I have people in every phase, right? We have some mentees who show up and they're just on it. They're like, okay, ma'am, this is my profile. This is my target. This is the companies I'm looking for. This, you know, and you're like, wow, you've done work around this. And those I get to kind of, it's almost like putting the icing on the cake with those people, right? You get to kind of top that off and be like, switch this, change this, do this a little this way. And then 3 weeks later they call and they're like, I got a job. And you're like, I knew that was coming. Clearly you were going to get a job. And then you have people who are really lost and they're like, I am leaving the service in the next couple of months and I know I have to start doing something around jobs. And you're like, okay, cool. Let's dive in with purpose, which is always where I start. It's just the most important part of a job search. So I've had these interesting opportunities to really understand the life cycle. I think the most powerful thing for me, to be honest, is seeing people. I'm going to get emotional. Damn. Seeing those who, like me, are lost and they don't know how to say what they did. They don't know how to share with the world what they're worth. And so there's this identity crisis that we all are going through. And when you're able to help someone articulate in civilian terms what that actually looks like, what it means, and they're able to walk away feeling like they have something to offer the world still. It's when we have on our capes, we're saving the world. That's super easy. I know how to say what I'm worth. But when you take that cape off and suddenly you're transitioning, that's hard. And losing your identity when you walk away from a job is not something civilians face, usually. Some of them do. I don't want to downplay. But for us, our community, our tribe is so powerful that when we walk away from it, we are walking away from a piece of identity. So to be able to help people kind of put their finger on, who have you always been? Who will you continue to be? And how might that look in the future and in the private sector? Easily the most powerful thing I do as a mentor.
So incredible. I love it. Well, let's actually, what we can do is go into a couple of the questions that were coming out from the chat already, and we can kind of give our perspectives on the responses. So so Liz was asking suggestions for sustaining a mentoring relationship. I'm thinking of how I would respond to that. Do you have an idea close? Do you want to start first or you want me to start?
I think the most important thing in sustaining a mentor relationship is executing on what they told you. So I really I don't have spare time in my life, but I make time for my Veterati mentorship. It's always on my calendar. It is important. But if I spend an hour of my day with you, I've poured myself into you, and all of our mentors are like that. That's not unique to me. I just know that's how I think. And so if somebody comes back to me and they're like, hey, I didn't do any of the things you said to do, and I still have the same problem. Can I have another hour? No, you can't actually have any more of my time because my advice hasn't changed. But if you go and you execute, I've had some mentees be really awesome and they'll execute, and they'll even send me an email that says, okay, you said to do this. I did boom, 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 da-da-da-da-da-da. These are the results. This is what I've got. Can we get on another call? And I'm literally like, when can we talk? Because that's exciting, right? So as a mentee, take action, give feedback. That will create a relationship, not just a one-way communication.
I love it. The only thing I would add to that is follow, when you follow up, the progress reports are actually really awesome. Your mentor is doing this because they want to see you succeed. So even if you share small things, I'm very, this is one of my weak points. I don't like sharing things with my mentors unless they're a huge win. Otherwise I'm like, no, there's no point in telling them anything until there's a huge win. Not true. The little wins really matter because your mentor really the only reward they get out of this is seeing you win. And so they want to see that happen. And when you loop them in, they get more excited. The other thing I would say about follow-ups is I found that in mentoring conversations, a lot of mentors will say things like, oh, I'll introduce you to this person and this person and this person. And like Jean said, mentors are super busy. So it's not that they're flaking out when they don't make that introduction. It's just they need you to make it very easy for them to take action. So if someone, I would say any conversation you have, especially during the job search process, where you meet someone, they get excited about you and they say, hey, I want to help you. I'm going to introduce you to these people. Follow up immediately afterwards with an email that just says, hey, I'm so happy you offered to introduce me to these 5 people. Here's an email that you can forward to them to introduce me to them. Right?
Yes.
It's so insanely easy for your mentors to execute. Otherwise, they have to sit around and think I have to write an introduction email and it's going to take me 30 minutes and I'll just do it next Friday, and then it never happens. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's huge. If you're getting an introduction from someone, that's awesome to give them what to send. The other thing about that is you get to write that narrative. So maybe your mentor doesn't remember everything about the conversation, but if you write that narrative and give it to them and say, hey, this is a suggested paragraph that might help, right? They don't have to use it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to copy and paste that thing. I'm not going to be creative if I don't have to be. Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly. So the other one, I noticed Anna was asking about how to seek military spouse employment challenge mentors. That one's fairly easy. Just when you log into Veterati, there's a badge that says military spouse. If you click on that filter, it'll filter out every single military spouse on our platform for you to book as a mentor. So that fairly self-explanatory. and a couple other things. So I think Stacy was saying, looking for guidance on how to build your brand and possibly start your own business. Very exciting. Jean, you can definitely speak to that. That's exactly what you did. And that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, so a couple of just resources. There's actually a really great book by Lita Citroen. It's called Your Next Mission. It's for the service member, but I loved it. It's personal branding as you're leaving the service. So it's a personal branding guide at its base, and personal branding is huge. It's a really cool workbook to work through. So massively recommend that. And then really figure out who you are. Who is it you want to put out there? And then begin having conversations with people. You can have a ton of conversations with entrepreneur mentors on Veterati. So it may be that you get on the phone with another business owner or someone who has said, I want to talk about entrepreneurship. And you say, listen, this is my idea. This is what I'm thinking. This is the brand that I want to build. What are your thoughts? What is your feedback? One thing I would say, always have some specific questions for your mentor. There have been a couple awkward mentee conversations where they're like, well, so I'm here. And I'm like, cool, what are you here for? So think about looking at the mentee or the mentor and saying, what can this person really share with me? What do they do well? And so one question might be, for example, to me, Stacy, you might say, hey, Jean, I've noticed that you've managed to get on a lot of podcasts. A lot of people have invited you onto the show. How did you do that? And how do you keep your brand consistent across podcast interviews? Right? So that'd be a great question to ask me. And then we would talk forever because I never shut up. And so you just want to think about what are the elements you need help on. And then it's almost like you get to crowdsource that. You get to go out to these people who've been successful. Always understand that every mentor has their point of view. And so not everything that works for everyone is going to be perfect for you. Diana and I had this conversation when I was first her mentee, and I literally said to her, I love that advice. I'm not going to follow it at all. I appreciate it. And that honesty, I think she kind of respected the fact that it was like, okay. 2 weeks later, I called her and I was like, you were right. I'm listening to you. But just keep in mind that this is your opportunity to glean information from everyone. So I would say, Stacy, start booking with entrepreneur mentors and with other successful CEOs who've made a business, and book with Diana for sure, because she's got her act together on that.
That's really great, Jean. And also, I think the question around how do you start a conversation where you don't know where you're headed? It's like reading a book, right? Mentors are like books, except for live conversation versions of reading a book. And so I always like asking, even if I know where I'm taking the conversation as a mentee or a mentor, for someone's life story ahead, because there's so much that's not on their profile. And if you start here, if they just take 5 minutes to tell you their life story and start from the beginning, like where they were born and then how they got into their first career, the entire journey, because what you'll hear during that journey are points where you can identify. And you're like, wait a second. So when you started your first business, you actually failed that business. That's not on your profile. How'd that go? Why'd you fail? Right. And so you can start digging in deeper to all of these elements. So definitely don't ever feel like you don't know where you're headed. Always you always have that life story question in your pocket. And then the other point is active listening. I am an obsessive note taker. So every conversation I go on, I'm actually typing up an entire transcript of the call. And in addition to that, logging questions as people are talking. So if you can be a super active listener during these conversations, you'll pick things up. You'll be listening okay, so she just said she just started this business, and then you'll start asking questions in your head, log them all. And the moment they finish the conversation, you already have 10 questions logged because you're curious about what's next, right? So that's it. And also from a business owner perspective, one tip would be podcasts like crazy. Listen to every single podcast about being an entrepreneur, starting your business.
Yes.
There's just so much knowledge out there already. And if you come to the table with a mentor and you've already been actively listening to some of the best podcasts for startups or whatever companies you're looking to build, you're just going to be that much faster to grow. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely. And then on that, Liz just asked which podcasts. Wow.
You go first. Yeah. I would pull mine up.
I love She Did It Her Way. I love Biz Chicks. I like Gary Vaynerchuk because I love his energy. And I think it's interesting that he's currently changing the conversation people think he's been having. So he's kind of adjusting some of the misunderstandings around entrepreneurship. And he's also one of the first to discourage you from entrepreneurship. So there's that. I listened to EO Fire for a long time, which is Entrepreneur on Fire. I don't listen to it anymore. But for the first 3 months of starting the business, that was a really good one for me. Then I listen to the ones that are within our community. The Decision Hour is by Adam Bird. I love Adam. His conversations crack me up. They're fun. So just those are kind of, there's a whole bunch more, but Diana?
Yeah, so mine are within the venture space, so technology startup space. And I'll try to think of a couple that aren't just like that. But the venture-backed startup space is a whole different thing. If you're building a technology startup, it's like a whole different thing. So a couple things, like Founders Talk is pretty good. They interview tons of technology, like tech startup founders. I love Seth Godin. Seth Godin's he'll be relevant to everyone, no matter what business you're starting. He has a really good podcast called The Dip, which is about like when you should quit your business. And I think that is worth listening to for every first-time entrepreneur to be aware of the signals. Because I think it's really easy, like at least in our day and age, it's super easy to start a company. It's really hard to make it grow, like extremely difficult to make it grow. It's like a 95% failure rate. There's a reason for that, right? A lot of people are like, I'm just gonna start a company. And so I told Jean this from the very beginning as well. I was like, it's not gonna be easy, but if we hold to it, then it'll happen. I would also say Entrepreneurial Thought Leaders is another one. The 20-Minute VC is a good one as well. And the Tim Ferriss show, so mixed opinions on Tim Ferriss, but what I would say is Tim Ferriss has a book out. It's called, I'll find you the title, but he interviews icons, all icons in sports, in leadership, in technology, and he pulls like everyone. These are all the Steve Jobs of the world, and he does little tiny chapter interviews. So it's a great book to just pick up, learn a ton, and drop back off and read later. I will find out the name of that book. But yeah, those are the podcasts.
Yeah, I'm like grabbing. And the other thing is grab a few podcasts in your industry. So like Diana was saying, she's a technology company. She's in the VC space. I don't listen to those because that's not what I'm building, but I do listen to things like the Career Queue, which is within my space. Drop and Give Me 20. I love Lindsay. So anything that actually like relates to your space you're going into is also a really good place to be.
Also Audible. I don't know if you guys are interested.
I love Audible.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Audible. Audible is my most favorite. So we have mentors that are human beings, and then you also supplement it with like mentors that are books, right? You just read as much as possible. Audible's pretty amazing because you can listen to things on speed like 1.5x or 2x or 3x. And I like go on long walks with my Audible on 3x and try to memorize everything that it's telling me. But a couple really good books. Okay, Jean, do you have a couple or do you want me to start?
Oh, a couple. You go and I'll pull up my Audible while you're going.
Okay. Love Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This one's like not about job search or any industry. It's just about life. And it's about a psychologist who's in the Holocaust in concentration camps and the way he is processing all this information. Anytime I feel low in life, I listen to Man's Search for Meaning and immediately am reminded that my life is not nearly as bad as it could be. And also gather a bunch of tools for how to be more optimistic. The other one I just read Shoe Dog, which is about Nike's founder. And it's pretty great too, because it's just like improbable. When you actually hear the story of how this company was built, you start realizing how improbable it totally was. I also liked, if you're interested in the work text, like in how the job space works and the best of practices, Work Rules was written by Google's head of people operation. And I thought that was a really interesting book because I think like one way to master the career process is to understand how the best companies do it. And the moment you have that inside view into like, oh, so if the best in the industry do it this way, then here's how I play this game, that makes a ton of sense too. And yeah, those are a couple of my favorites.
Okay, so a handful that I have in here that are like kind of my recent ones. So I do a lot of thinking around how to lead a team and how to bring people together. So the One Mission, which is by Chris Fussell and General McChrystal, who I used to work with, kind of the continuation of Team of Teams, which is also priceless, as well as Simon Sinek, who has Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last, because again, those are places that I just am all about. I love Tribe by Sebastian Junger, and actually within the military space, I think it should be required reading for like all of us, because it's just really powerful about tribes, and it helps you think around how do you build your tribe. And then option B by, what's her name? It's gone. Facebook.
Sheryl Sandberg.
Thank you. I could see it. Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant, who I love both of them, about resilience. And then there's one called Captivate, the Science of Succeeding. I'm fascinated with this other one. There's one called Fascinate that I love. There's one called Captivate that I love. And then there's Presence by Amy Cuddy. So all of that around how to be the person that you want to show up as, and how to help others relate to you, and how to relate to others and give them what they need out of conversations, things like that.
Awesome. Yep.
Before we get into questions, this has all been amazing. When we were talking about doing this webinar, you guys talked about like a cycle for a mentee. You know, that maybe you're not looking to start your own company, or maybe you're not trying to get promoted to CEO. Maybe you're just wrapping up that degree. And Diana, you talked literally like about a circle. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat, and I would love for everyone here to hear about that.
Yeah, so Gina, I think you actually started talking about the cycles, right? You labeled the terms on it. So I'll just generally say that, you know, mentoring can affect every single phase of your life, right? Mentors are really guideposts. And so if your goal is, you know, whether you're saying, hey, I want to figure out what college I want to go to, then you can talk to mentors about, well, what was your college like? What was it really like? Like, not the branding that the college puts out, but what was the degree actually worth? Because if you talk to me about that, that's like a real conversation around how I felt about Georgetown, which I didn't know because I never talked to any Georgetown alum before I applied there, right? So, and then there's also degree questions, like, was your degree actually worth it? Was it a worthy investment? Did you actually get the job you wanted? Like, these are all things you can find out way ahead of time before you waste your time and invest your life into it and make the wrong decisions, right? So academia is one area, education. The employment cycle is one we talk about a lot at Veterati, right? That's where you're entering the platform, and it goes from discovery questions like, what should I do with my life? What makes sense? At which point there are a lot of career coaches on our platform you can talk to about this. Like, you know, I really don't know what it looks like. And they'll help you dig into, well, who are you? And kind of what Jean does with her business, like career coaching, life coaching, a little bit of that. There's also, like, once you narrow in and hone in on what you're interested in, we call that triangulation, right? Once you're triangulated, then you're able to have informational interviews with mentors. Like, you know, I had my career coaching. I know I'm interested in these 3 companies or these 5 industries. I'm going to target specific conversations with mentors in that space so I can hear what their real life experiences are. Because, like, the one thing with businesses is you can't really tell what's going on the inside of a company, even if you go to Glassdoor. So you need to talk to the people in the business to understand, like, is this culture a real fit for me? Who do I want to work for in the business? What's my best fit roles? Like, all of these core points, right? And then obviously, like, there are some interesting things that'll happen on our platform. We've noticed that mentees will do mock interviews with their mentors prior to their interviews themselves. They'll do resume reviews, LinkedIn reviews. They also do salary negotiations. We just noticed this recently, where we have some mentors who are specialized in salary negotiation and have actually gotten our mentees like major job, like salary raises, because they had these negotiation tactics they were using. And the other loop that we talk about is entrepreneurship, fairly self-explanatory. Talking to other entrepreneurs is super important. Talking to investors is super important. Like, don't build a business until you've talked to at least 10 entrepreneurs and really ask them for their low points, right? And I think that's the other point, is it's easy to, like, in our world right now, it's all about branding yourself as super successful all the time. This is an opportunity where you get to ask people about their not successes, so you can really get the full picture of what you're getting into, and not just read the happy articles about starting companies and succeeding in this job and becoming CEO and whatever, you know, and this school is awesome because you're definitely going to get a job after this school. You know, you kind of need that real talk. So yeah. Jean, I'll turn it over to you for cycles now.
Yeah, cycles. So when we work with people, we talk about these cycles. When I was in the FBI, I did a lot of training around human intelligence and the intelligence cycle. So the intelligence cycle basically says there's a question you need answered in order to make a decision. Obviously, within national security or working Russian organized crime, that might look like who's the bad guy. For you, it might look like, what kind of job do I want? Where do I want to work? You know, what path do I need to get there? The things Diana was just talking about. So You have a question that you need answered. You go out and find people who can answer that question. You get it answered. You take that information, you analyze it, and you loop it back in, because now you're going to have a new question. So now that I figured out what I want to do, and I think I want to be a CPA, now my question is, where do I want to be a CPA, and how do I get there? So now I'm going to go back in the mentor finding cycle and go back in and say, okay, I'm going to talk to 5 mentors who are CPAs and figure out what their path was. And then I'm going to take that information and analyze it. And I'm going to say, do I need to do this? What do I need to do? So one real life example is, for me, I talked to a mentor about, okay, my purpose is around helping people who are really in hardship. It's no longer creating growth. It's starting to debilitate them. I do that one of 2 ways. One way is by powerful connections. The other way is I drop in, like I parachute in and save the day, right? Like I take over, I fix everything. Where is a place I can do that? And so one place you can do that is being an insurance adjuster who goes in after like massive tragedies. I was like, cool, awesome, I want to be that. And so then I started talking to people who were that. And what I learned was, I wasn't going to have the education or the time on target. It wasn't going to pay as much as I thought it was. And it was going to be a lot of time doing things I didn't really like in order to get to that end point. So then I was like, okay, not what I want to do. Back to the cycle, right? So now I'm back in and asking different questions of different mentors and figuring it out. So it is a constant cycle, and it's just honing in. You'll recognize the term zeroing in your weapon. That's really what I equate it to, is just you're getting closer and closer, but you're constantly flowing through that cycle. And then even once you have a job, you have new questions, right? How do I interact with these coworkers? How do I interact with this boss? How do I get a raise? How do I get a promotion? So all of it's just this constant, like, ever compounding cycle. It's just where you are in it right now. Are you in the information phase? Are you in the analysis phase? And then you go right back in. Kelly, did we get that?
That was perfect.
You guys nailed it. Thank you. Yeah, that was my, that was so impactful to me when we were talking about this. It was so important. So I just, thank you for resurfacing that one.
Yeah. And it's just, I think the key is, it doesn't mean you're broken, right? Like if you find out you're at a dead end, it's not a dead end. It's just another question. So like if you always have more, that doesn't mean you're not doing it right. That means you're actually doing it exactly right.
I love that. Does anyone have any questions that we didn't get to that they'd like to type in chat? If you're feeling
Stacy had one.
Okay.
If you're like me in the transition, the loss of identity phase, how do you best use and not abuse a mentor's time? How do you start a conversation if you don't know where you are headed?
Oh, we talked about that for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Did we talk about that? Okay.
But yeah, if you have any more insights, I think, oh yeah, Stacey just said, you answered that.
Oh, my bad. So sorry. My bad.
That's okay. And if you're feeling a little shy, you can private message it to myself or anybody else on the panel, and we'll get it asked. In the meantime, I did get one, Diana and Jean, that asked, do you recommend having more than one mentor? Which I know you guys have touched on this, but maybe we can talk about the importance of having more than one mentor.
Yeah, absolutely. Jean, how many mentors do you have?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think I have 50.
Yeah. I have business mentors. I have industry mentors. I have peer mentors.
Life mentors, marriage mentors, all of the above. Yeah. So think about it like building your own personal advisory board or your council, and diversify. It is about diversifying, because not one person has all the answers in the entire world. It is about the right person at the right time. The other thing that'll happen is your mentor composition. Like if you think about it, let's say you choose 5 mentors, right? On average, the Veterati mentor has 4 mentors. Some will have 25, some will have 57. Last time I checked, 57 is the record. But if you have like your 4 mentors should all have unique skill sets. You're putting together your power team, right? So this is your power team. You choose who's on your team, but your team will shift over time, and that's okay. Like you don't need to stay with one person for your whole life. And as you evolve during these conversations, you'll, like just what Jean was saying, when she thought she was going to go into the insurance space, probably a bunch of mentors were actually in that space. But now that she's evolved out of it, they're not, mentoring her actively anymore. And that's kind of the beauty of Veterati, because it's all about individual conversation. So you don't have to feel about being, you know, if you find someone and there's a huge chemistry match and this is someone you want to learn from for the next year, by all means, book phone calls for like months in advance, months in the future. But if you find, you know, that first call was enough, it answered my question and I validated I totally don't want to go into this space and I'm interested in speaking with other mentors, that's totally fine as well.
Yeah, and I will say, so this is not the standard, but this is a little bit about who I am. When I was in the self-exploration journey, in addition to the mentors I was finding on Veterati, I was also finding people on LinkedIn and having conversations. I did about 60 conversations over the course of 60 days while working full-time and traveling internationally. I don't recommend it, but I needed answers and I needed them fast. And I was a little bit terrified of what the answer that kept coming back to me was start your own business. And I didn't want to listen to the universe on that. So I kept fighting that. So that is an opportunity to grow and learn as much as possible. And then you maintain the relationships that work, the people that invest in you, the people that you really want to learn from. So some of my mentors, I put more energy into the relationship than they do, right? Because I desperately want to sit at their feet and learn things from them. Some of my mentors really pour themselves into me, and they're the ones who check up on me because they're really invested in my success for, you know, various reasons. So just, you'll find some are, like Diana said, the one-time conversation that just is amazing and gives you everything you needed and cool, have a good day. And then you have the other ones that will be ongoing for whatever time period continues to serve you both.
Thank you. John asks, from lessons learned, what is the trend/percentage in the mentee preferences of initial contact or communication? I assume you mean like video conference versus text versus phone call. John, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, well, I can kind of tackle that from a Veterati perspective to start. We're a little bit biased because everything happens through phone calls, and we're also going to build in video conferencing very, very soon. But we do 60-minute phone calls. And the reason why is there's like lots of places where you can text or add a message to a board and get people to write like 2 sentences about what their ideas are. But Veterati has always been meant to be a space where you create like strong relationships, authentic relationships. And in our minds, it was always, look, if we can get people to that first phone call, like if it's easy to book that phone call and schedule it and they can get together and have that 60 minutes together, at least in the beginning, and the mentee doesn't feel like they have to ask for it. Right, they don't have to be like, oh, well, I guess I can email, but I don't want to trouble this person because maybe they don't have time for a phone call from me. Or if I ask for a phone call, I should only ask for a 5-minute phone call or a 15-minute phone call. So we've removed all that and really said, look, the purpose of being with the Veterati program is to create these deeply authentic relationships, and we're giving you that 60 minutes to start building that relationship. So ours is primarily phone and conferencing, video conferencing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are at the top of the hour. If anyone has any additional questions, kind of speak now or email one of us. You don't have to forever hold your peace. Diana and Jean, thank you so much. I've been getting emails and text messages through this entire webinar on how phenomenal and informational and great this was. So I already know that it was great. For those of you that attended, we greatly appreciate it. I will be sending a follow-up email with links to both HireServe and Veterati and as many of the resources mentioned today that I can track down URLs for. So please be on the lookout for that. And with that, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope everyone has a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.